I was doing consulting. And so I ended up having to go with what the executive sponsor wanted, even though I didn't always agree with it. We did go through and do a lot of training in advance. I can tell you that my schedule started out with, we notified folks, we wrote emails. In fact, I wasn't quite ready to show that, but let me go ahead and I'll share some of those. Let's see, I did a whole communications campaign. We took and we worked on deciding when were we going to do the transition, when were people going to be able to use it. If you are just moving into Microsoft 365 and they are using Skype, hopefully you're going to enable Teams and Skype at the same time. That way, as soon as you make the announcement, people can start using chat and meetings in Teams. And then you give them a date that we're going to roll over. And then, of course, it does mean that you have to be diligent and you have to help them out. You have to be planning for when's the rollover date going to be? How are you going to communicate? When are you going to do training prior to the changeover so that you get at least basic information out to folks? We set up something we called office hours. So once a day for a couple of months, I gave training. And what I did is I did the same training every day each week. So for week one, we went over basics, how to use chat, how to schedule a meeting, how to start your meeting, how to share your screen. And then we did not do channels in Teams right away. Our executive sponsor said, no, we want to do just one for one. What can you do in Skype? I want to, that we can do in Teams. I don't want to confuse people. So there are pros and cons to it. So from his perspective, he wanted to not give people more than they could handle. That's a really great approach to take. However, it causes an additional adoption issue down the road. What I wanted to do,
Yes.
yep.
Oh,
Did
sorry.
somebody have something?
No.
Oh, maybe they just had an someone in their house interrupt. So what we ran into was everybody was doing great. They were all doing sharing, but of course, you know what happens if you're chatting, if everybody is only using chat, they're not using Teams at all. If this is all they're doing is they're in here, they learn how to do group chats, they're doing group chats, they're sharing documents, they don't have any clue where their documents are going. And I'm not sure if everyone on the call recognizes that when you do chat and you share a document in here, that what happens is it's actually saved to your personal corporate OneDrive account. So if you think about OneDrive, I have people who like to use it for a file share, trying to get people to not do that. But when you have your corporate OneDrive account, it means that if you change departments, or especially if you leave the company, anything that you've shared with someone still remains in that individual's corporate OneDrive account. So we had chats going on, we had group chats going on. We had lots of files going into OneDrive. And what we really wanted to do is we needed to get them into Teams. And I had wanted to do that from the beginning. If you have the opportunity to do it for the beginning, I highly recommend you do it, that you spend some time with each of the different groups, whether it's departments. In our case, it was departments. We wanted to go around. I scheduled meetings with all the departments to find out exactly how they worked. Did everyone share everything? Where there are pieces of the department, like maybe there were managers in the department that regularly met, shared and collaborated on files, but they didn't want the rest of the department to share in on those files. But then there was other information that everyone needed to know. Did they work in specific groups? And probably a good example that everyone can relate to is, in our case, we call it the finance department, but you might call it accounting. We have a group of people in there that do accounts payable, a group that do accounts receivable. We have some that manage, that we have like just the managers. They share information with everybody. They also share information amongst themselves. There were some folks that were doing, since I do work at a global manufacturing company, they were doing following up on transactions, international transactions related to shipping, issue tracking, etc. So what I ended up doing eventually was being able to sit down with those managers, understand how their teams work together, setting them up with a team, giving them channels, and identifying ahead of time if they needed private channels or not, which if you haven't spent a lot of time in Teams, you'll want to keep that in mind, because every time I'm training new people on how to use Teams, I have to remind them that you have to think about that in advance, because once you create your channel, if you make a standard channel that everyone has access to, you can't turn it off and make it private. You could delete it and start over and make it private, but you can't just switch. Or if you decide you want a private channel and all of a sudden you want it to be available to everyone, you can't switch it to a standard channel. I'm hopeful that they will do that in the future, that Microsoft will find a way to do that. But because of the way they've structured where everything goes with those channels, the documents, the conversation and everything, I think they're going to have a little trouble with that. Because initially, even though I've been using Teams for since it came out, so over 4 years, I thought that when I had a private channel, it meant that, like all of the other documents in your team, that they were going into a SharePoint document library like you can see here. And if they're in the SharePoint document library, then hey, no problem. And I thought that if I had a private channel, when I went into that document library, what it was doing is it was just giving me all of my folders. So actually, let's look at it in SharePoint, like all of us are used to. It sounds like we have lots of people in SharePoint. So if I go to my document library on the back side of my team, I can see a folder for each one of my channels. Well, that's all really super great and everything. And I thought, oh, well, you know, if I have a private channel, then I still have a folder there, but the only people who are going to see it are going to be people who have access to it. Well, it turns out I don't have one in this particular team, but if you have a private channel, those documents are not even in this site collection. Microsoft actually spins off and spins up a new site collection for that private channel. The documents are stored there, and you can't easily get to it. You can only get to it through PowerShell. So that was a lot of fun. That would be one of those tips and tricks I would tell you to think carefully about when you're setting it up. If you are working on user adoption with folks with Teams, one of the things that will be your friend, even though we don't really think about it a whole lot, is actually the Teams help. And even if you're just in here sharing it with other people down in the lower left, you can certainly suggest a feature which actually goes to Microsoft. It takes you to User Voice, where people can put in suggestions. If there's something you wish you had that isn't in here, or something you don't like that you wish they would change, you can put it in there. And you also can register and go through the list, and you can vote. And what Microsoft does is looks at it and says, oh, which one's got the most votes? And that's what we'll work on. But we do have actual help topics, and I have to remind myself to tell people about this. So this is really great. If you need help with something, or you need to direct somebody, you don't have time to give them a bunch of training, and you want them to find information, this is a really good place to go. You can come here, you can send them right to the training tab. Everyone has access to this. And Microsoft keeps this up to date. They add new things all the time. They reorganize it, reformat it, so it's easier to use. Lots of quick videos, and you'll see nothing is over, what, 2.5 minutes, I think. Everything is, most of it's 1 minute or less. So it makes it really easy for people to find out how to use lots of different features that are available in Teams. I really like that. If you're in here and you want to know what's new, it's right here. Every time they update Teams, it shows up. Now, what you're going to see, whether if you do this on your own instance of Teams where you're currently working, if you see the same thing I do or not, may depend on how your tenant is set up, how your administrator has decided to receive updates. I have myself set up with my tenant here so that I get, as soon as something's available, I get it first. And so what I see here may be something that you don't see yet. I know I couldn't wait for Microsoft Lists to come out, and I was just chomping at the bit, and I heard everybody had it, and I just couldn't wait till it showed up in the tenant at work, and it took forever, or it felt like it. And now we have it, and I'm in love with it. But you can see there's lots of things. So now they're pushing being able to have a personal Teams account. I don't have a personal one since I have my own tenant, but if you do, it will show up in a drop down here. I'm a guest in some other tenants, and so those show up here. Unfortunately, when I will be really happy is when you can pick what tenants you want access to. So if you're consulting, that you'll be able to do that and get between tenants. Now you can do that on the mobile app, but you can't do it on the desktop client yet. That will be really, really great. So if you are like me and you do consulting with more than one client, and you have access to their environment, their tenant, and you want to be able to do that, I have found that what I have to do is just set up notifications and have it on my phone and have my phone handy, because I can switch back and forth really quickly on Teams on my cell phone. I just can't do it here in the application. So that would be another place to keep up with what's new there. Some of the things in Teams that I know that maybe it's a no-brainer for some folks, but I know that when you're so worried with all the things you're doing all the time, you don't always notice, is I absolutely love this expand tab. I am sure that when it came out, somebody, and maybe some of you on the call, immediately saw that and said, oh, what is it? And clicked on it. I didn't. This was the greatest thing when I figured out that I could expand it and take up my entire window. I was in love with that. And then of course, if I want to, I can collapse it again. But that was really huge for me when I added applications for some of the folks that I work with. We have some custom applications that we've built for Teams that we allow people to use inside of Teams. That was another thing that was huge, because this whole panel here, sure, I can do some dragging and dropping a little bit on it, but when I was able to just get rid of it, that just made everybody's day. So like, oh, now I can see my whole screen. I can do what I need to do. I can get all the columns in my document to show up. It was a wonderful thing. In fact, yeah. And so here's one of my personal projects. I have a huge garden outside. And when I was trying to plan my garden, and I would sit here, I'd just be like, oh my gosh, I didn't have enough space, and I could do that. Now, another thing that's really handy that everybody doesn't always realize, I have a tendency to open my Office documents in the application just because I like having that full functionality that you get in Word or Excel or PowerPoint. However, if you're collaborating with other folks, one of the things that I really do love is that if you open it in Teams, if you're not doing anything complex when you're making edits with folks, is you have the option to select the conversation here. And when I select the conversation here and start talking to people, and so I will hit up my intern here. Let's see, please add the new seeds to the spreadsheet for spring. So when I send this, what's going to happen now is I had the ability to use the @ I've sent him a message. It's referencing it. He can respond to me, and we can have, and if we're both in this document at the same time, we can have a full conversation right here. Now, when I close it, it actually is going to, let's go back to my main screen here. It's actually going to show up in my posts. So I can have that conversation here as well. Now I have, let's see, I believe it's here. Yep. We added a Microsoft list in here. That again is one of those things that I really, really like, because I can do the same kind of a thing with my SharePoint lists while I'm in Teams. We set up a Microsoft list, and I'm going to assume everyone knows it, but if you don't, it's really just a SharePoint list, and it is awesome. I love it because I'm not a developer like many of you are. I'm just a business user, but I'm one of those people who's kind of a super user when it comes to SharePoint. I can do all kinds of out of the box and no code solutions. I don't do development. So I love the fact that I don't need a front end developer to now add things like the pills and changing the colors and getting the alternating colored rows in my list. I am so excited about that, and I could just bust. But anyway, when I go in and I want to look at an item, let's see, what have I got here? Okay, so this one's set up like this. If I set up a issues list, which I don't have set up here, let me go ahead and do it real quick because I certainly can. This is another thing for managing tasks for people. I know we've got planner boards. I know we've got To Do. I know we've got Microsoft Project. But one of my favorite things to do that has been super, super handy and well received is I will get the issue tracker out here. I love this issue tracker. And if you haven't done this before, this is how you add a list in Teams, and it'll create a SharePoint list in your team. It shows you what it's going to look like, and I'm fine with using the template, and I'm going to just leave it called well, let's just call it issues. I want to, I can put a description, and I can pick my color. If I want to, I can pick an icon because it's a task list that I'm going to actually turn it into and create it. And it happens really fast. Now, when I create a new item, I don't get the old SharePoint list view. I get this really beautiful item view for my form. And I can put everything in here. So let's just make one. We'll just do a test issue 1. It's new. I'm not going to add anything. I will assign it to myself. I can put today's date in if I want to for the date I created it. If I want to, I can give it a priority. I'll just say that's normal, and I'm just going to save it. And I can add attachments and everything. So it looks really nice. It's a beautiful list, makes users want to use it much more than they did the old SharePoint lists. And when I go in here now, I can click on conversation within the item. And when I do this, it still gives me a conversation that I can tag people on. And they'll get a notification. It looks like our document did when I did this on the Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go ahead and I'll close out the conversation, and let's go back to the list. And now one of the things I'm waiting for that's going to happen next is, since there's a comment in this item, there is a new feature coming. I can tell this is new because it's got the little icon here, but there's going to be another icon here where if there is a comment added in the conversation inside the item, that it will look like, oh, I don't see it up here. The little the normal conversation item that we see. Let's see, where do we have one that I can show you real quick? You know what I'm looking for, and I'm having a moment. Yeah, it's this little icon right here. This will show up in my list next to, it'll show up right here. That's coming. I'm expecting that anytime, actually. It should be showing up by the 1st of the year. But I keep seeing it on people from Microsoft who are doing demos because they're already using it and they've been beta testing it. So I'm expecting that to show up sometime soon. Oh, let's see, what other good stuff do I have for you? The other thing that a lot of folks are starting to do that I try to encourage everyone to learn when they are first learning how to use everything is, how do you get to webmail? So we talk about being able to go to office.com and log in and see everything that's available. And being a tenant admin, I have everything. And if you are a tenant admin, you may choose to reduce that. Because certainly if you throw everything out here, then all of a sudden you're going to have some folks who are going to be overwhelmed by what shows up. And if they're not, then what you're going to run into is you'll have people who will start clicking through everything going, oh, hey, how can I use, what's this Power Apps thing? Or, oh, let's see, oh, Power Automate workflows. Oh, I want to do a workflow. And you know how that goes. Then all of a sudden you've got to support all of that too. And although it's available in the tenant I currently work in during the day, we haven't told people about it. And so far so good. I haven't had anybody go out and create something and then put in a help desk ticket saying, hey, my workflow doesn't work, where I have to go troubleshoot it. So I'm grateful for that. But I do like to show people that they can use office.com to get to webmail, to get to Outlook. I do also show them how to get to it, to get to Stream. I know one of the things we talked about earlier was how Stream actually lets you do a lot of things. There are things we can do in Stream here that you don't think about. I'm sure everyone knows that when you have a Teams meeting and you record the meeting, that it's saved here to Stream. And whoever records it is an owner, as well as whoever owns the meeting is also an owner of the recording. But the person who hits the button is the one who gets the email that says, hey, your meeting has processed, the video is available. And everybody else just knows, oh, well, I'll just go look for that in my meeting to find it. Stream actually can do a lot of things, and I should probably go into my, do I have my other tenant up? I do. Here we go. So in this tenant, I actually have some things that I already have in Stream where I did some recordings. Because one of the things that's hard to do when you're sharing a screen in one of these presentations is to demo how to share a screen. So since we're using Zoom, I probably could do that, but I don't actually have to completely do it. One of the things, if you don't realize it, that you can use Stream for, just like you can use Teams for, is to do live events. And that was pretty exciting because it turns out it's pretty easy to do. And you can also use it for recording what you're doing on your screen. And that's one of the things that I've shown people how to do for troubleshooting with issues, is to teach them how to go to office.com, log into Stream, and they can click the create button and they can do record a screen. Now, when they do that, they'll get prompted. Usually the first time you get prompted to allow your microphone and your camera, and you can turn it off here or not, but I can choose to record my screen. And if I do it, let me go ahead and do that. And right now I can when I've done that, it shows me my camera, and it's showing my other camera that I have here, my external one. But I can choose to show both of my screens. I can choose an application window. So I could say, hey, yeah, I just want to record what's on Teams that isn't working. I can record what's in Stream or whatever else I have open, or I can just have it open one of my tabs up here and I can record it. So how about, let's go with Stream. I want to do this one, this video or this tab, so it's not going to record anything else. I'll tell it that I want to share it. It gives me a countdown. And here I am, I'm recording my screen. So I'm going to go and, oh, come on, let me go back here. And if I am having something that I'm doing, say in PowerPoint, I can go here and go, oh, hey, let me do this. So let me start a new one. If I wanted to show someone how to do, how to create a new PowerPoint, we could do that. We can add a title. Yeah, I know. Oh, there we go. Demo. Good. I can insert. If I want to, I can do a new slide, pick a different one. Yes, add the slide, etc. I can keep doing this, and right now it's recording what I'm saying. It's recording what's on my screen here. When I'm ready to stop, I can click the stop button there, back to here, and it shows me how long I have done this. I can tell it, yeah, I can choose to record it again. If I'm not happy with it, I can actually preview it right here. And here I am, I'm recording my screen. So I'm gonna go and I don't know if that's picking up coming through since it's coming out of my speakers. Something that I'm doing, say in PowerPoint, I can go here and go, oh. All right, so we'll stop that. You've already heard me say that, but it goes through and it does the whole thing. I can tell it to upload to Stream, at which point I can give it a name. I can call it a PowerPoint demo. English, yep. Anybody in the company can view it. Sure, I'm fine with that. You can see it's already showing that it's processing. I can save the video file. I can download it from here as well, but I'm going to go ahead and say publish. And so it's going to finish processing, and then eventually when it's done, it's going to show up in Stream, and it should tell me it's still processing is what I'm expecting it to do. Yeah, see, it's processing. So when it's done processing, it's going to show up in my, oops, yeah, that was good. That little panel up there gets in the way. All right, there we are. Now I'm back again. All right, so eventually it'll come up here and it will show up at the top of my list. And when it does, then I have a choice. I can download it, or I can just go in here and I can grab a link to whatever I've created. If I want to, I can do that. And have to go there. All right, so I can, and then I can show people, you can just share it. I can grab a copy to the link for anyone who's in our tenant and has access. And because I said, oh yeah, let anyone be able to see it, then I can put that link into my help desk ticket, and whoever's troubleshooting it can see the recording. So that's one of the things that I like to show people how to do. I know we have, you know, the Snag, some people have Snagit available and some other snipping tools that will do a meeting recording, but this way I like it because people can use their camera, use their microphone, and they can record exactly what issue they're having problems with. If it's something that's repeatable, that if they know they go do it, it will show up, and send that in, and it makes life really easy. I do not have OBS set up. We could do a live event if we wanted to as well. That's pretty easy. Also, it's just create a live event. And you have to set up the encoder and everything. You have to give it a name. And what it initially does is it sets up the screen for what people will see until they show up. Let's see, I think I have something that I used here previously. Oh, here we go. So I actually was speaking at the Collab 365 Global Con 4 conference that's going on right now. And I was working on something I did it a couple of weeks ago. They had like little 15-minute sessions, and I did a session on how to do this. And so that way I have my background. Karen's event will show up. This is what people, and you can see right here also in the screen, but what you're looking at is what people will see if they go to the link that I generate before the event starts. I can select the date for the event. We could do it right now. Why don't we do that? Let's see if we can do that. Or 6:30. Yeah, let's make it 6:15. Let me do that. Oh, come on.
Karen, it sounds like these live events are a little bit more frictionless when it comes to welcoming external people to the tenant, almost like a webinar.
Yes.
Too.
Yes. So with Stream, if you're doing a live event with Stream, honestly, it's not available to external users. It's only available to people in your tenant. The other thing, when you do a Stream live event, it's really for if you're having a one-way conversation. So if the president of the company wants to give a talk to everyone, but they're not looking for feedback. They're not looking for someone to be able to chat back at them or speak with them, that it's just, this is an announcement, there's something major, you know, we're buying another company and they want to talk about it. This is a good way to do it. Or if you're going to be doing kind of one-way mandatory training for your employees where you're not going to allow them to ask questions, then it's a great thing to do. Or if you just want to do it so that you can create the MP4 that you could download and give to somebody and put somewhere else, then that's okay too. It's nice because you can embed it onto a SharePoint page as well. And even the live event, I can create it all in here and then embed the event on a intranet page or on a Teams tab. And when the event happens, people can view it there instead of having to click the link and go through to the event in their browser. that would be the limitation on Stream. So it really is an internal tool. If you want to do a live event that allows external users, then you're going to need to do a Teams live event. And then you have choices there, whether you want to allow people to interact or not. And that certainly is what we like to do. We like to be able to let people interact. So with a Teams live event, we're going to be able to allow them to have chat and chat back and forth. They are working on making it so you can have people speak, but right now it's still pretty much one-way communication as far as video and audio go. Unless someone else has seen something different. I know that everybody's asking for it. We do have breakout rooms and meetings, and that has been an evolution because of the schools that are using Teams, as well as when people have been doing live events using Teams. When you use it for a conference, you want to have breakout rooms in a conference, right? Because we're normally in person. We go to a conference, we see a schedule for 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 or 20 different rooms, and we want to be able to pick which one we're going to go to and which presentation we're going to see. And so that's kind of grown. We've had to, Microsoft had to facilitate that. And teachers, of course, they want to be able to break their kids up into little groups that they have control over. Any kind of training that you want to do online, when you're doing it, I mean, I know I've gone to management training classes where they talk and lecture, and then they give everybody a number and break up into 4 or 5 groups. You work on something, and then everybody comes back together and you present what everybody worked on to the entire class. And we haven't been able to do that. Now, breakout rooms are coming in Teams. I have not seen it in my tenant yet, but I know they are supposed to be showing up anytime. So that's another fun thing that's coming soon. Let's see what other good things. Presentations. So one of the things that I really like, and I don't remember if I put it, oh, yep, I did. One of the things that I discovered when I was looking for new cool things that you could do that our business users might really find valuable, that when I presented this to a bunch of folks, they were like, wow, I didn't know you could do this, is with PowerPoint. If you're not aware of it, if you're someone who's ever gone to Toastmasters and you're used to speaking, you'll even enjoy it for this reason. When you're putting together your presentation, if you're a little embarrassed and you don't want to do it in front of someone else to practice, but you know you want to practice because you don't want to be embarrassed when you get in front of everyone that you're speaking to, using PowerPoint in PowerPoint Online is a fantastic way to do that, because when you open your presentation, and this is almost a year old now, but this presentation, what I was able to do is open it in PowerPoint Online, go to the slideshow tab here. You know, normally we're all on home, but we go to slideshow. I can select rehearse with coach. And when I do that, what it does is it puts my presentation into sharing mode, and you'll see the little coach shows up down here. If I want to, I can have real-time feedback. If I don't want to get that right here where I can see it, I can turn it off. But I'm going to go ahead and leave it on so that you can see what it does. It shows me that my mic's ready, that it's collecting information from my microphone. And I'm going to, when I hit start rehearsing, what it's going to do is it's going to time me. It's going to pay attention to what I'm saying to see if I use filler words or not. If I get stuck and I just go, or well, so those kinds of words. It's going to look at the cadence at which I speak in a variety of other things, and it will actually give me feedback on my presentation that I can view. So let's go ahead and do just a really quick one so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'll start that. Hi, welcome to Managing the Process. We're going to talk about migrating from SharePoint on-premise to SharePoint Online today. Don't forget to thank our sponsors at the presentation and stop by for SharePoint after the event. There is a speaker survey that we would really like to have everyone fill out once we're done. I'm Karen Drudsky, and I am a Microsoft SharePoint specialist, and I'm also a certified Scrum product owner. Places that I've worked include some of the ones you see here on the screen. Some of the clients I have worked for include some of the ones you see here on the screen as well. And I've worked with all of them doing Microsoft SharePoint projects. Today we're going to talk about our process and what I use for managing a migration in SharePoint. And I'm going to stop right there. Let's see if I want to get out of it. I'm going to exit. When I exit, what it does is it gives me a summary of what my presentation was so far. So it tells me how much time I spent. So this way you could go through your whole presentation and time how long it takes you to do it. It shows you how many slides. It gives me my pace in words per minute, and it will tell me if it thinks it's too slow or too fast. Yeah, it actually checks. If it catches you reading the text on your slides, it will let you know that you might want to consider not doing that. Yet sensitive phrases, so that's if you accidentally say a cuss word or something that it perceives is a cuss word, it'll let you know about that too. There are folks who speak in a pretty monotone voice, and it will pick that up and let you know if you're doing that. And like I said, filler words, so I guess I would have to do this again and throw some in there on purpose so that you would see it. But this is really nice. Now, the one thing I will tell you about this though is you can't save it. So if I want to save this, I have to take a screenshot of it so that I could compare it to the next time I practice. But it's a fantastic way to practice, get some feedback on what your presentation is like and how it's going before you have to actually give it in front of someone. I know some executives who were really excited when I showed them this because it meant they didn't have to go find someone else to help them do their preparation for their meeting. Let's see, what other good stuff did I have here? Now, I am going to bet that most of you have seen there is a designer option when you're creating your presentation. Let's see if I've got, if it'll show up here, it may not. There it is, designer option. I assume everyone's seen this or accidentally seen it, or it's prompted you when you've created a presentation, but it's available. And I am very excited because Microsoft Word is going to have a designer feature that will give you choices to help you format your documents. It's not out yet, but it's coming. And I have seen some of this with Excel, but not a lot. It depends on what kind of a table you have. It'll give you a little bit of help, but it's not as good as what PowerPoint does. So I'm excited about Word because I've seen plenty of documents in Word that I really wish someone had had a little help formatting to make them easier to read. Things that are coming soon that are not part of the immediate office that might be more interesting for folks that are developers, or maybe you already know about them. Recently, I saw that Power Apps is going to be preloading in the background. And I think for some of us who work with some of them where we're pulling in large lists and stuff, that would be really exciting to see that, where we don't constantly, it doesn't just constantly load as you go. Was it lazy loading, I believe it's called? The other thing, if you're an administrator for Teams in your tenant, I'm also very excited about the fact that if we want to make changes or adjustments using PowerShell, we don't have to do it in the Skype PowerShell app because it was broken up into two, depending on what you wanted to do, determined which PowerShell code base you used. And now it's all in Teams. And I was really, really excited about seeing that. I have to admit, I'm also, and I think all the developers here would agree, I'm excited to see that support for Internet Explorer 11 is going away. It's already gone in Teams. If someone has Internet Explorer 11 as the default browser on their computer, they may have trouble in Teams. If they have trouble being able to view web pages, SharePoint lists, etc., within the Teams window, you may have to check what their default browser is, because if they're using IE11, that could be the problem, and you'll have to get them to switch to a different default browser to solve that problem. I actually ran into that a month or so ago. We had a Power App that we created, and we have an office in China, and the users there were testing for us before we rolled it out. And we had one user, and there were things that just weren't showing up in the Power App. And then we also I actually set up a issues list like this for them, and they weren't able to get to everything. Everything didn't display. It was very strange. And I was trying to figure out what in the world was going on. And it turned out that our infrastructure team did not do to the China office what they do to the rest of the US offices, which is they had not forced a default browser, and they had not made sure that all of our computers in that office had Chrome or Edge or any other, modern browser on it. And it took a minute, and one of the developers went, "Wait a minute," because I'm like, "What browser are you using?" And it was Opera, which, to be honest with you, I didn't think anyone used, or that it was even out there anymore, but I guess it's still there. And everything didn't work. Once we got Chrome put on their computers, everything worked fine. So that's another thing I'm sure we're going to see with Internet Explorer going away. Let's see, what else do we have? If we were on a meeting, we could talk about backgrounds. I don't think I have a meeting. Let's see if I have a meeting on the calendar. If not, we'll put one on real quick and talk about that. Well, I do have a meeting on here, but it's not a normal meeting. So let me schedule a new meeting. All right, I'll have a test meeting. And I will invite my assistant here. So let's talk about meeting options. So it's a little weird if you haven't noticed it already, and if anyone hasn't explained it to you. If I have a meeting and I create it and I go back in and edit the meeting once it's created, I have a lot of choices. And in fact, now we have some new choices we didn't have before. Used to be I would see chat and files and details. I'd obviously see my scheduling assistant. We had meeting notes, and I know that Microsoft is trying to get folks to use meeting notes. They have fixed some of the limitations. When I rolled Teams out to the folks that I work with right now, meeting notes had restrictions, like if you invited 25 people to your meeting, only the first 20 people who joined would have access to the meeting notes. If you took meeting notes and there were people who didn't attend the meeting, they couldn't see the meeting notes. They weren't able to see it after the fact. And I don't know about all of you, but when I take meeting notes at a meeting, it's usually so that anybody who missed the meeting can go back and look at them and knows what they missed. Otherwise, it's like just excluding them completely from whatever topic we're working on. So I honestly have told folks don't use meeting notes. Maybe that will change in the future, but right now, I know the limitation of 20 people has been lifted, but there are still I think there are still some issues with the restrictions on meeting notes. And certainly, no matter whether you're using this or OneNote, you're not going to be able to, the person's not, if someone is external, if you're having a meeting that includes external users, they're not going to be able to access those. The whiteboard wasn't there previously. You could add the whiteboard when you went to share, you could select the whiteboard. So that's new. You can add that now, and you'll see that there is now add a tab. And that's new as well. That's brand new, where I could actually, if I want to, I can add an app. So if I wanted to add a form because I wanted to do a survey with everybody, I could add that right here. And I don't think I have any created that I can pull in, but I might surprise myself here. Yeah, I want to add a form. We'll make it a poll. All right, so if I wanted to, I can create a new one. And then this will be available to everybody who, yeah, I'll just save that. Now that'll be available to the meeting attendees. They'll be able to see this when they come to the meeting, and it'll be attached to our meeting. The results will be on our meeting and everything. So that's kind of cool. I really like that. If you have other things that you want to attach, it's add a tab, and you can put a link to a website. You can put in OneNote if you have a OneNote notebook that you want to have people look at. or any of the other things that you can normally add to a tab, which would be apps. And yeah, it would be apps. So I will go back to my details. The other thing that I was going to point out, though, are meeting options. It would be nice if you could set these as you were creating the meeting, but you can't. And you'll notice when you click on it, it just opened up in my browser window. The reason for that is for people who are on the OS operating system, the Apple operating systems, so that everybody sees the same options. They opted to put it into a browser window. You obviously can set these if you're not familiar with these. These are kind of important. Right now, I have it set so that people don't. People in my organization, anytime I set a meeting, whoever goes to the meeting first, that turns the meeting on and starts it. You can choose to change that. You can make people wait in the lobby until you show up and start the meeting, like some of the other meeting platforms do. I can have people bypass the lobby. This might be useful if you have external users and you want the meeting to start for them. You don't want them to have to be admitted to your meeting, because otherwise they get a little notice that lets them know they have to wait in the lobby and get admitted. I have not actually, even though I have announced callers turned on, I haven't had that experience. So I couldn't tell you how great or how terrible it is. I normally have it set up so everyone can present. Now this one got changed more quickly because of education, because kids were taking over the teacher's meeting. Because right now, with everyone allowed to present, if I'm presenting in the meeting, and if CL decides he's got something to show, as soon as he hits share, it knocks me out and he takes over. That was happening with teachers. So now you can change that. You can choose that if you have external users on your meeting, that only people in your organization can make changes. Or I can say specific people, and I can choose who, and it will give me the list of meeting attendees who can who in the participants can actually do it. And if I had more participants, it would show me all of them. Or I can say, I don't want anyone to be able to present except for me. And then no one will get the share button at all. I can allow other attendees, or I can allow my attendees, I could say, I just want to present. I'm going to put you on mute. You're not going to be able to unmute yourself. I can control that here also. Some of those are new. We didn't have the ability to select whether people could unmute or to choose who could present up until recently. Bypassing the lobby has been available. And if you don't know this, the default is usually people in my organization. The default is set by your tenant administrator. If you want to, it is possible, if there's a group of people who want to have a different default, that they can set security policies so that if you want all of your meetings to always be where you're the only person who starts the meeting, it doesn't start until you arrive, you could speak to whoever's in charge of your tenant and ask them to set your account up that way, so that every time you make a meeting, schedule a meeting, that it does that. There are lots of different selections. They can actually set all the defaults. And if there's a group of managers or something that want it set up a certain way, that can be done with a security or with a policy within Teams. All right, let's see what else would be useful here that I have. I have so many different things that are going on. We talked about those. Oh, another thing that's really handy that I let people know, and I don't have a meeting going, so it's going to be a little hard to tell you, to show you. Let's see. I don't know if it'll do this since I have Zoom on. Let's see if it'll let me just turn a meeting on real quick. All right, I will. Okay, so let me do this. So a couple of things that are going to be useful if you haven't discovered them already. It took me a while to figure out, if you have enough people sharing their camera, you will get, it won't be grayed out for the large gallery, and you can choose what you see. And if you want to go back to where it shows just 9:9 pictures, you'd use the regular gallery. If you haven't used Together Mode, that's a very cool function. It was actually put together by Microsoft based on a bunch of research that they did on how people interact. And although right now what it does is it makes everyone look like they're in a auditorium. So it's like you're sitting at the movie theater, you know, looking at the screen. So you're looking at yourself plus everyone else who's in the meeting, and you're in random chairs. You can't pick which chair you sit in or anything, but it actually does, after you get used to looking at yourself in that group, it does make you feel like you're actually seeing the other people that you're working with. And it's a more, I don't know, it's almost like you're in the same room, even though you really aren't. I'm really excited to see when they add the new backgrounds, because there are some new ones that make it look like you're sitting at a conference room table instead of in an auditorium, as well as there's one that looks like everybody's sitting on a bar stool. That one looks pretty interesting if you were having happy hour. And there'll be a few more, and I expect that they will also eventually get to where they let you upload whatever background you'd like to use for it, but we're not there yet. Let's see. The other thing that I did want to tell you is there is this turn on live captions. I like that one because when you do have more people on with you, you'll see it's doing it with me now. It will start to show, and it's new that it shows who's speaking, but it will show you who's speaking, and it does voice to text. That's really helpful, I have found, if someone has a bad connection. Today I had a call, and our department met, and there was someone, and she could hear all of us fine, and she sounded like she was breaking up. So I turned on live captions, and then I could read what she was saying because her microphone was picking it up, but for whatever reason, it wasn't showing up very well. That folks have found to be really handy. I also find that to be extremely helpful if we're working with our China office where English is not their first language. This way they can see the words because they read English better than hear and translate it for many of the folks there. So we try to do that as well. So I made sure and let them know, and I know they use that a lot as well. Background effects, of course, if you're not familiar with it, those are fun. You can blur your background, pick a background, and we have fun. The first time 3 of us in the same meeting picked the same office background, it was a lot of fun because everybody's like, oh, hey, we look like we're in the same building. And then it will actually let you, let's see if it shows up at the bottom here. Oh, add new at the top. You can actually upload your own background if you want to have your own custom picture as your background when you're presenting and when you're in a Teams meeting. And Teams does a pretty good job of remembering whatever you've selected so that the next time it will do the same thing. If you have a recurring meeting, whatever it is that you use when you normally go in there, whether you turn on your camera or turn on or off your microphone, it will do that. And then you can change it. But oh, the other thing, if you're not already familiar with doing this with other platforms, or device settings are also really important for people. I don't know how many times I've had to troubleshoot with folks, not to mention myself, where I boot up my computer, go into Teams, I can hear everyone, they can't hear me. Or I can't hear them, but they can hear me. And it will usually be solved in here because I know whenever I use an HDMI cable to connect my second monitor, Teams seems to think that my monitor, because of that cable, has speakers on it, and it will make that monitor the speaker. In fact, I'm pretty sure, yeah, oh, no, it didn't do it here on this one. This computer, I guess, has gotten smarter. But I do have computers that do that at work. So that is very common. At the end of our meeting, the other thing that's important to know is in the participants list, under the ellipsis, this is also where you can control some permissions, but you can download an attendance list. Currently, I do not believe they've changed it yet, but it's coming soon. Right now, to get an attendees list, you have to do this before you close the meeting out. Once everyone has left the meeting, the list goes away. Now, they're supposed to be saving this so that it will be available in our information on our meeting in the future, but it's not here yet. So if you do have a need, it is pretty cool though, but when you do the download, oh, wow, that's new. Yay. That is the first time I've seen it do that. Previously, when I did the download attendance list, there was no visual cue whatsoever. And it would show up in my downloads folder on my computer. Now, as you just saw, it had a banner come up. So yay. So that has happened. Woohoo. I'm excited. The other thing that's fairly new, it's been out for a month or so, is you can actually end the meeting for everyone. That can be useful if you have people who kind of disappear, but they're still connected and they forget. Because if you're recording a meeting, the options for when you stop recording are for you to either go back in here and tell it to stop recording and it'll stop the meeting recording, or when everyone leaves, it stops. But if somebody forgets to leave the meeting, then that recording will actually run for up to 4 hours. Once there's nothing happening on the meeting for 4 hours, then in the background, Microsoft will kill the meeting recording, but you'll end up with a 4-hour long stream video. So if you utilize the end meeting, like I'm going to do right now, it ends it for everyone on that call, and then it will stop the meeting recording for you as well. Okay, let's see, did we hit? I think we've hit most of my big items. Just the whole being able to collaborate is huge. If you're doing user adoption, there are a couple of things I would suggest. Obviously, people are going to be interested in chatting first. Then they're going to want to know where are their files and how do they find their files. If you can get them to do multiple trainings with you, and if every time you do it, you talk about where your files are stored, how to find your files. And then what I did was I gradually added to that. So first I taught them your files are in OneDrive. Here's how you find OneDrive. Here's how you find your files in OneDrive. We're getting better in that we can go to files here. And if I go to OneDrive, I can see what's there, which I have a lot of folders. And it's gotten so that it's better, but I have to, then you have to teach them, oh, I can tell I shared this, but I can't tell who I shared it with. And then you have to teach them to open OneDrive and then how to manage sharing that. And people do find it interesting. It can be really fun doing training. When you're doing chat, you share a file with a group of people that you're training, and then you go in and show them how to go into OneDrive and make the file disappear when you take away their permissions and it's gone. And people are like, oh, wow, you can do that? And I'm like, yeah, you can do that. That's what happens when you share in a chat. But then gradually, then talk about what happens to those same files when you're in a team, and that it's now in a document library. And honestly, I don't talk to people and say, oh yeah, when you save a file in your channel, it's going into your SharePoint library. I don't say that, because honestly, users don't care what the platform is. I can tell them it goes in your OneDrive account or it goes into our team document library. After people get used to using the team document library, then I'll start adding things like, how do you do version history? How do you actually see where your files are? And oh, I know you probably didn't want to hear that it was in SharePoint, but it's in SharePoint. And this is really exciting because, and then we'll do the, how do I open this in SharePoint? When you do get to the point of where you show them how to open it in SharePoint, a couple things I will point out here, that if I can do it in advance for someone, or if you want to write a script or set your template up so that it will do this, I would go for it. I let people know the first time they come here, it says go to the channel conversation, because it took them to their documents here, which is identical to where they came from. This will take them right back to Teams. However, after they go, if they go explore what are all of these links here, and they go to the home page, then they're not going to have that. It'll have conversations, and conversations is actually going to open up Outlook for them. And I believe that's because the Skype history, when we used to have conversations in Skype, they were stored in Outlook. So it takes you to conversations to your Outlook Online in order to find those. So in our environment, what I actually do is I right away, I go in here and I edit, and I will delete I will just remove the conversations link. And then you can see I have the back to Teams link. And what I actually did was I just go in here and I add a link. And when you select in the drop down, one of the choices is Teams. And it will connect back to that Teams channel or to your team in that channel that you came from. And so I just add back to Teams and then I move it up here. And that way I tell people, okay, when you come in here, wherever you go in our website that's on the back side, all you have to do is click back to Teams and it'll take you back. And it'll, you know, it's supposed to. It usually works. Come on, take me back to my team. I can see where it's got the right link. That is really annoying. That's the first time I've had that happen. So let's add the link again. I do this at work all the time. Now let's see if I can remember which one it is. Is it that one? There we go. And it takes me right back. It just takes me back to my conversations instead. But gradually I do that. If you have not used the SharePoint connector, I don't have it working in here right now, but I love the SharePoint connector. If you actually have any teams that like to communicate and share news and updates and links, teaching them how to go to their team site on the back end and use SharePoint News to create that information. And then you enable the SharePoint connector here on the team and it will automatically notify everybody when news is added. They don't have to go to the website. It all shows up right here in Teams in your conversation feed. People can talk about it and everything. It's wonderful. It's a really great way to be able to collaborate. Now, let's see, I don't remember. I don't know if I've seen a date for it, but there's lots of other really cool things that are coming down the road in the future with SharePoint and Teams, especially now that Jeff Tepper is in charge of both of them together and they're, you know, have to work hand in hand. We're going to be able to see more and more where we have SharePoint sites. We create a modern site and it's going to automatically integrate right with our team site into the Teams application where people don't actually have to go through a browser to be able to get to it. And the more often we can use that, the more wonderful and the more useful I think it's going to be for folks. Now there's also, let's see, is it going to give it to me today? We also have templates if you're doing that. Now there was one, oh, I'm not seeing it. All right, so the view changed again. I'll have to go back in my admin console and check it out. There is a universal team though that you can create where when you create it, everyone in your entire tenant is automatically added to the team. And it wasn't until I saw that I realized why. I saw a 15-minute like speed demo that someone did on how to use Teams for your intranet. I'm still not convinced that it's a good way to do it, but if you wanted to, you could have a team for the entire company, have a channel for each of the departments or the news or, you know, employee benefits or whatever it was that you wanted to share. It certainly would be easy to do. And it's something worth considering also when you're doing planning for how you're going to set things up for the people that you work with for collaborating. All right, I can talk all night about things related to Teams and Microsoft 365. We didn't even touch on Planner and To Do, and that's exciting too because you can add planner boards to your task. Do I have that? I think I have a planner board here too. Oh, I did have one. Oh, maybe it's here. I have all kinds of, yeah. So if you like Kanban boards, the planner boards are great. They have all kinds of buckets. You can add new buckets to it. Oops. And it's there. You can drag and drop them around to reorder them. There's all kinds of filtering So I can look for anything that's got a due date or has no date on it, and it will show it to me. I can filter on priorities, labels that I've given to my tasks, who it's assigned to, you name it. I can go in here and you can see I can put in progress. I can put in my start date, due date, details, choose to show it on the card or not show it. I can add a checklist of items. I can add attachments. We can have conversations in here. If we add comments, they get added to the bottom. I can also go up to the ellipsis for more actions. Oh, that's not doing what I wanted. Where is my, should give me, that's not what I was expecting. All right, let me close that. I should be able to put colors on there, my colored tabs. And I'm not seeing that. Let's add a new one and see what happens. And I will assign it to myself. You can assign it to more than one person if you want to. Add the task. I'll go in here, open it. Oh, that's really odd. Oh, that's because it's filtered. That's what's wrong. Let me clear the filters. It's like, what's going on here? All right, one more time. All right, now when I go in here, oh, it's still not doing that. That's really strange. All right, I don't know what's going on. I'll have to figure it out. It should give me choices of colors that I can tag everything with if I want to. I should be able to have tags in here. Normally I do. Yeah, because I can see here, this one has one. This one's got a blue tag on it. And that normally comes from up here. So I am not sure why it's doing that. You didn't used to do that. That is really strange. But also in the sub-navigation menu here, one of the choices is I can go to the planner board. So let me do that. I can get here by just going to office.com and selecting planner if I want to. And if I'm in my planner board here, hopefully it will work properly this time. No, it's not. How did I do that? Oh, there it is. Okay, so they moved it. Okay, so we have different colors and I can change them. What they say, they've changed that completely. Wow. All right, so I'll change it there. All right, and I'm going to select that and it'll add it. You can have multiple labels. And once you have labels, then you can filter on them. Let's see. You can also do some cool things in here that you can't do through Teams. If you open it up in here, you can actually go to the ellipsis and find a lot of other things. I can copy it. I can export it and it will put it into an Excel file if you like to do that or if you need to use another tool. Let's see what else. I can add it to a Outlook calendar if I want to. There are lots of things that you can do with Planner. Now, we've used Planner to, we started using it with a Power App where when we wanted to create a new task for someone, we wanted to put it into Planner and we needed to be able to add attachments to it. And that was great, except for as we were thinking through our process, we wanted to be able to, in the future, after we've closed the tasks out, we want to be able to find documents that had specific metadata on them or that were for a specific task. And it turns out, at least as of right now, if I want to see my completed tasks, you'll see there right here, I've got 15 of them. I had all kinds of tasks here. So I could show just my completed tasks by filtering, but if I have 100 closed tasks, I've got to go through 100 to find if I have 200 or 1,000. And if I wanted, I said, oh, okay, well, that's fine. So we'll go to the document library and we'll find, you know, where are the planner documents stored? I'll just look for it. I'll search for it in the document library. Well, it turns out when I have a planner board attached to my Teams, Microsoft Teams team, that any attachments that I put on this planner, on any of these tasks in Planner, they go into the root of the document library under documents outside of all of the folders. And there's no way for me to filter, sort. I mean, I certainly could search. I could use search on that document library because it is a SharePoint document library, but there was no easy way for me to say, oh, this is a specific customer, or this is a specific company, or it's a specific type of a document. It's a contract versus a price quote, and be able to sort that way. So we decided that was just not going to work, even though I love the look of the planner board. So we ended up doing an issues list like the one that we just created here tonight with you, because with the issues list, when we add attachments, even though they're not going into a document library, they're an attachment to a list, just a normal SharePoint attachment, which we can find because in a list, I can create a list view based on whatever criteria I want to be able to quickly search or filter to find the document that I'm looking for. And it doesn't get jumbled up with all of the rest of the documents in my document library or for my team. So that is it is another way to be able to manage tasks. I'm in love with the Microsoft list though. It's a lot more configurable. It just doesn't give you that nice Kanban board, although I've asked for it on the user voice. Okay, so I've been talking for like an hour. I would like to open up the floor to questions, comments, anything anybody else might like to talk about. Did everybody get at least one new thing that was helpful for them?
I'm personally looking forward to reviewing the recording and trying to keep up with everything. So it was awesome.
Yeah, I'm actually planning to go back and watch the recording too.
Oh, wow.
Karen, this stuff just came out. It seems like you've been using this for a decade, the way your level of understanding. I mean, I'm so impressed.
Well, I worry though, because I can get too far into the weeds and I don't want to do that. I wanted to be able to share stuff there, and there's a ton more. If I had more time to prepare, I would have had, I'm sure, a million more things.
No, we're done back 5 more, 10 more times. This is boy, this was not a presentation. This was a celebration, Karen. I mean, the way you showed us, for everybody on this call who have struggled with the interface, with the clunkiness, this was a total celebration, and there's no better person than you to, give it the props that it deserves.
Well, I'm in love with it. I mean, I was a SharePoint junkie for, I don't know, I've been using SharePoint since 2003 Portal Server, and I did consulting with Protiviti for 5 years, where I ran a ton of SharePoint projects and migrations and you name it. And there were some third-party tools for a while that you could implement that would make the Office integration work pretty seamlessly. And I was like, oh my God, this is exciting. People don't have to go into SharePoint to be able to save documents to it and everything. And when Microsoft took in Microsoft 365 and made the Office integration so much more seamless, I got totally excited, because now all of a sudden, if somebody wants to work in Teams, they can work in Teams. If they want to work in SharePoint, they can work in SharePoint. If you want to do all your work in Word or PowerPoint, etc., you can work there, and you don't have to go drag and drop to the SharePoint document library. In fact, that's actually one of my favorite things, and I didn't even show it to you, so let me do that. Yeah, let me fire up Word real quick, or open up a Word document.
Hey, Idaho, while Karen's bringing that up, you and I, we have SharePoint roots. It seems like SharePoint is, taken a back seat. I mean, we're just a repository of data. You know, if I go to Indeed.com, are we going to be looking at MS Teams developers instead now?
No, it all says SharePoint yet. Jeff Taper's not going to let SharePoint go away. But when I'm here, like it used to be, you know, I could save my document and then I would have to go to my SharePoint site, or I'd have to go to my, and even Teams, people think that they have to go to their team site and drag and drop stuff there, but you don't. I can just go here to files and I can do save as, and you can see I have access to a bunch of tenants, but here's my tenant. I can choose to save it directly to OneDrive right here. Or I could say, oh, hey, what teams do I have access to? And I can see all my teams. Here's the A team that I've been demoing and all night. And when I go here, I can see my documents library, and now I can see all of my channels. So here's my general channel, and I can just save right from here, from Word. And now this file is now in my document library in my team. And you can see, because it wasn't before, now it's got autosave as well. Now, I had someone ask me recently, they said, oh, but if you do that, shouldn't you take and like delete the one that's locally on your computer? I guess that's a preference and it's up to you. So for me, what I did here's my file. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close it. And let's just go look and make sure it showed up here. Let's go to my files. And I'm going to sort on the modified from newer to older. So it should be at the top. And there it is. Here's the one that I saved. So I was in Word. I didn't have to go into Teams to save it here. But now the next time I open it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open it from here, and I'm going to open it in the app. And I just encourage people to remember that, and if it was a brand new file, if it's a brand new file and I save it there, and we can do that real quick too. Now the next time it's already saving directly there because I opened it. But if I close it and then I want to go open it from here now, and I can say open, I can choose to go find it here, or I can come look at what do I have. So here are the last things that I did, and I can find it right here. If I have folders, I can go look in my folders for where I was, but I can look right here and I go, oh, here's the last one I did, because that's what we all do. We save something with Word and we know that we did, and it always shows up in our recent list. So if we've already saved it to our team, it's going to open it automatically from our team. We just don't usually pay attention to that. So if I take and I create a new one, so let me just let's do a new blank document. I'm going to go, and I need one, so let me save it. It's going to do my usual. Where do I want to save it? Now, Microsoft's getting smarter and smarter, and so it takes and it'll automatically say, hey, do you want to save it to your OneDrive account? And I'll be like, no, that's not where I want to save it. So I can look here and see if I see what I want. I'm just going to hit more options so that I get what I'm looking for. And that's this screen again. So let me make it wider so it's easier to see. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to save it to my team. Yep, I want to save it to the A team. I'm going to call it my demo doc. I want to put it in my general channel. And I just, you just have to teach people that it's your team, and it's your documents, and then it's your channel. And I'm going to save it there. So this is a brand new document, and I saved it to my team right from Word. It's already auto saving. So the next time that I go into this file, I'm never going to see it on my computer. It's always going to just be in my team. So let's see. Oh, and so when you do that, if you don't see it right away, up here, this little circle is a refresh button, and it will refresh your view of whatever you're working on. If you have a Power App in here, it will do the same thing. You'll see that, and that's always the refresh. And here's my demo doc, and I can choose to open it wherever I want. So once people understand that you can do that, and you can do it with Word and Excel and PowerPoint, it's a piece of cake.
Oh, we'll never use File Explorer anymore, and we'll be saving stuff to teams, to sites, and instead it won't be buried in our download folder or our
Yep.
desktop.
Yep. And then the other thing that I teach people about is syncing. And I will see if it works here or not, because I think I might already have this one synced. Yeah, I gotta check, because I actually think there's a bug going on in Teams. I used to be able to hit sync and my OneDrive sync app would flash up on the screen, and it doesn't do that now, which is really strange, because that happens in my tenant at work too. So I end up coming here and doing sync, and then it comes up, and then it'll ask me if I want to do this. Yeah. Let's cancel that. And then it'll go through the whole OneDrive sync thing, and when I do that, then you're able to show people. This is the other thing, because people, it's like, okay, go to your team, sync up your document library, and then when you come here, it's gonna show it for me. Let's see. Should show up here, I hope. Oh, fiddlesticks. It didn't. Let's do it again. It's probably because I shut that down. Let's do this. All right, yeah, open. Okay. I guess I hadn't synced it with it before, so hopefully it'll work now. All right, let's try it one more time. There it is. So everybody's used to seeing the OneDrive cloud, or if you're not, that's one of the things you're going to want to show people, is that you can find your OneDrive cloud in your File Explorer. If you sync your SharePoint library or your document library in Teams, it shows up here also. So otherwise, if I'm in Word or whatever I'm working in, I can drop stuff into my team right from here using my File Explorer. I just have to sync to it.
Got to be careful. I've seen people blow away a whole library.
Yes.
Thought they were doing it on their local.
Yes, you do. You do have to do that. That is correct. And that's where people have to learn about what these little icons mean here, because right now those are all in the cloud. If they were local, they would be filled in, and you have to learn. That's one of the things I haven't spent a bunch of time teaching people yet, but I want to spend more time teaching people how to understand how you're configuring your OneDrive sync, because you're absolutely right, you can do that.
Karen, Dawn from Missouri, she comes from the governance world.
Mm-hmm.
And in the old on-prem days, when we did governance, the main thing was maybe site validation, verifying that people on each site do indeed have access. Boy, things have gotten a lot more complex now. What advice do you have for people like Don Frank?
So honestly, I'm all about governance, and I did a whole lot of information architecture with SharePoint. The hardest thing that you're going to have to do is to make a complete paradigm shift in how you think, because we are so used to having not just control over what our users are doing and where they're putting things, and we still can control some of it. But the reason that everything has gotten so open is because if you think about it, if you've ever been in a really controlled environment, what's the first thing people do? If they don't have any control over their files, or they don't have any control over what they're doing, or if they have to go through some long drawn out approval process in order to be able to get access to a place to share files or store files, they go get Dropbox, they get Box.com. They will find another way to do it. So we have to kind of back up and say, okay, I've got to think about this differently. Just like even a SharePoint site, our classic SharePoint sites, they were very structured, they were narrow and deep. And now the architecture that Microsoft is proposing is that everybody's got a site collection, every site is a site collection, and everything is flat and wide. And you allow everybody to have as many permissions as possible to do as much as they can. And it's easier to do that because everything's so flat and wide. Now everybody's got their own space. but it does, it takes you have to be able to let go of that need to control where everybody is, what they're using, how they're doing it. You still have, and you have to be more, I don't know, I feel like I have to make it more of a partnership. That part of the reason it works for me is because I am not all about just telling people this is how you have to do it. I'm really big on more of a, it's almost, I guess, learning the Scrum methodology has made me much more where if I'm working with the business, they're a partner. They're part of the decision-making process, and they're part of setting what our permissions are, what our goals are, how we're going to use something. And they have to agree and be part of it. And by doing that and allowing them to own things, then they can, I don't know, it's just easier. I mean, that's why we have, governance committees, change control boards, groups of people where you don't just do it in a vacuum. You talk to people, and the people who are responsible, and you say, look, let's have a naming convention, let's put, team or project or something in front of each of our team names so that we can tell that this is our department team and this is our project that just happens to have the same name that we're working on. People have to understand that one of the cool things about teams is instead of spinning up a new SharePoint site, we spin up a team. And what's cool, we can archive it. When we're done, we archive it and we don't have to look at it. But if we need it, we can go back and get it. So many things. Gosh, governance is challenging. I can tell you that the site that I work in, when I got there, someone had turned on the tenant. They got Office 365 and they turned on everything, and everything was wide open. And people said, oh, what's this Teams thing? And you had the people that went in and they, sure enough, they created some teams because they could. And when you looked at the names of the teams, what did you get? You had John/Robert/Julie. And it's because they were just using it for a chat group. They had no idea what they could do with a team. They didn't know what a team was. And then the tenant administrator was having a fit. He's like, where are all these Office 365 groups coming from? And I was like, yeah, they're coming from the teams. He's like, why do they make a group? and so understanding what things create groups in your tenant, and even for your tenant administrators to get to a place where you recognize that you're going to have to take a different method of thinking. It really, you kind of almost have to turn 180 degrees with how you think. That it's okay. Now, I can tell you what we did is we did lock everything down so that people couldn't just randomly make groups, couldn't randomly make teams. We then set up some security policies for who is actually able to create a group. Because one of the things, and I don't have the graphic handy, there is a great graphic that you could find out on the web that shows the integration. Because when I create a Microsoft Teams team, I get an Office 365 group. When I create a SharePoint site, I can choose whether I want to have a group associated with it. When I create a planner board, if I do it within Teams, I can say, yeah, I want to attach it to this team, and it just gets attached to that team and that group. But if I go into office.com and create a planner board, it actually creates an Office 365 group. And we didn't want everybody just going gung-ho, because people don't have any idea how it all integrates and how it all goes together and what it means. They don't know that when you create an Office 365 group, it means you just made an email box for everybody, or a distribution list, basically, where if I email to it, everybody in that group is going to get the message. People don't know that. So we locked everything down. And then as part of the training, I had to bring on a group of what we didn't call them champions, but they really are our Microsoft 365 champions. And we were lucky because each department, in the IT department, we had business analysts that were responsible for each department and all the systems that those departments use. So they were a small group that we could train ahead of time. and get them up to speed. And I actually did a PowerPoint presentation and went through how to configure a team site. Now, we still don't let them create teams. That is restricted to the teams administrator or the tenant administrator. I will gradually move out of that because I want to move out of it. So for governance, we're kind of gradually doing it. I want to make sure that when people are an owner of a team, that they know what they're doing. So everybody wants to be able to add members. Everybody wants to be able to create channels. Everybody wants to be able to invite whoever they want to their team. But the problem with that, of course, is that then you have people, if they don't have any training, then they don't know that they need a private channel, or that, oh, I made a private channel, but I don't want it to be, or I made this standard channel, but I really want it to be private. Can you change it? It's like, no, I can't. They don't know to think of those things. So my goal, my next phase will be to put in place, we'll actually probably use the Power Platform and create a Power App to make a form where people can request a team, and they have to put in what they want the name of their team to be, who they want to invite to their team, who needs to be an owner on their team. And then we'll have an approval process. And if they want to be an owner, if they can prove that they've taken and it probably take me about 20 minutes to teach them how to manage their team. They have to be one of the people that are on a list of people who know how to own and manage a team, then we'll make them a team. Right now, the admins or myself, we create teams as they're needed for projects, for departments, collaboration efforts. And then one of our business analysts is an owner of it. And I would like to get to the place where the business people are their own owners of it, because we got plenty of smart people in business who can do it, but you don't want them doing all kinds of crazy stuff. So I don't know if that helps Dawn at all, but that's kind of the process I'm going through, because education is the big thing. Recently I saw Sarah Hazy. She's an MVP, and I don't know which bucket she falls into, but she works a lot with users. And she made the comment, she said, you know, it's really great. We go through, we roll out a new project, and now we're getting so that we're doing some training, and we go, oh, we get teams, we're going to go ahead and train people. And then we stop. And the problem is with Microsoft 365, Microsoft keeps giving us new features. They keep giving us new things. They add to the choices of what we can do with what we have. So we really need to keep educating people. It needs to be an ongoing process. It's a product. So we need to almost be a product owner, where we take it from the time it begins, from when it's born, to the time that it goes away, where we no longer use it at all in the company, and manage that process from beginning to end. I have to agree. She's absolutely right that that's really what we need to do. So hopefully that helps. And if anybody's looking for something for that, I have a new thing I want to start, because I heard Sarah Hazy suggest it, and I thought it was an awesome idea. And that was, once you get done with the initial training, start a user group in your company. You know, just like we're having this user group meeting. Now, I know CL does them pretty often, but most of the user groups I belong to are once a month. So have once a month a meeting of anybody who's interested in learning more about anything in Microsoft 365, and you can talk about what's coming new, what's changed. You can ask people to, because you know you're going to have some people who are gurus on using Excel or Word. Or one of the things I was asked about is, hey, can you teach us more about using OneNote? Well, I had to learn more about using OneNote, and now I use it more, because I learned how to take, and when I'm taking notes in OneNote, I can, you know, pull in my meeting information right from Outlook. I can, you know, share that with all the people that are in my meeting. You're going to have people in your company who are experts or have a favorite app, and you can get them to start presenting and helping keep track of it. All right, now we're over time.
Any other questions up there? Well, thank you very much, Karen. Boy, that was a presentation from the heart. Man, we need to clone you. And you know, what you said about, well, people don't know about it. Well, that's why we need people like you, you know, to evangelize. We've got people like Idaho also who was on this call. He was going to tell us about SharePoint, but he's going to have his own session in January. He's going to talk about Lookbook. He's going to talk about some of the virtual reality stuff, I believe.
I love that stuff. I'm excited.
But you've been so kind with your time. Thank you. Idaho, do you have anything to add? Sorry we didn't get too much on SharePoint, but I think you're on mute. Give us a preview of coming traction.
So how much time do I have?
Take as much as you want.
Well, I'm not going to do that because I'm home with my kids and the family, and I've got a DoorDash order on the way. So I'm going to give you like 2 or 3 minutes of razzle dazzle. So I have a buddy who works at Microsoft who every once in a while, I mean, and we both work together on SharePoint, and every once in a while he'll come to me with something cool that he's, seen or something new coming down the pipeline. And so first of all, let me stop here and say, don't ask me about new stuff coming down from Microsoft because he doesn't really know that much. And I basically, usually forget as soon as I'm told. So it's not like I really know anything special. But this one perked up my ears because essentially Microsoft is getting into the virtual reality business. And so I'm going to share my screen for just a second. Yes. Okay. And I'm not a virtual reality expert.
Oh, I lost your audio.
Me too. He's showing us SharePoint Spaces, though. It's really cool.
I lost your audio. On the lower left, there's a mute up arrow. Maybe you could point to the microphone. Maybe it got swapped out.
When he said he was going to tease us, he really did mean it.
Wonder if he can hear us.
I think he can. He's pointing to his headphone. This looks really cool, though. I mean,
it is. It's really cool.
And disconnect it for me. I'm sorry. Somebody.
I can hear you. You
Okay,
gotta tell your wife to stop watching Netflix.
I am so sorry. So somebody called and my phone was connected to my headset and yeah. Okay. So
We can hear you.
okay, and can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So bottom line is Microsoft is getting into the VR business, and they're doing it based on SharePoint. And so what you're seeing on screen is a quick and dirty VR demo that I built on a SharePoint site, basically when I realized it was going to be part of the presentation. So there's nothing special here, right? Like in terms of, background, but I was able to build a working VR demo in a little over 10 minutes. It's interactive. You can add actions. This is a 3D element that I found and downloaded online. And if there are actions available, they would appear here. I believe potentially that this has strong applications for people in the manufacturing space to do training, to put people in a 3D environment that looks like their work environment and allow them to put on headsets and or other things to be able to go through scenarios. So if you're working in manufacturing, if you're working in defense, law enforcement, prisons, there is a lot of room to build demos, build environments that look like your work environment and include training. And so one thing that I wasn't able to do in the time that I had is that you can add videos and document libraries. And so I didn't have any videos suitable to share, but you can literally build out a training demo scenario with a video in the environment and allow people to walk around. Oh, another thing that's another industry that I believe that would find this useful is real estate as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I don't want to take up too much time, and it's getting late. I was planning to walk us through building this out. CL, do we have time for that, or should I let the people go with this preview? Should I save that for later?
So this is Frank. I really want to see it. So if you're going to race through it, let's do it another night because I want to pay attention. I want it to go slow so we understand it.
Yeah, plus you got DoorDash too.
Agree.
Guy called right in the middle of the demo.
Yeah, my head is going to explode from everything I learned from Karen. So I can't learn any more or else I'm toast.
Yeah, and in the interim, I might try to add a little bit more razzle dazzle, try to get my hands on a headset. So
You're doing good. Wow.
Yeah, this is great. I saw somebody do a presentation on how to do this, and they used it for HR onboarding.
I don't have enough imagination to understand how that would apply.
Well, they did. They did a document library for, onboarding documents. They also set up a pedestal with most of the places I've worked. You don't get to do this, but apparently where they did, they do, where they had 3D images of 3 different kinds of laptops that you could pick from. And another one, they did another thing like that for what kind of a company phone did you want to select? And it would let you see like the 3D rendering of the device. It was pretty cool.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And in today's environment with COVID and a lot of people, frankly, changing their businesses to be permanent work from home, giving people a sense of what a thing looks like before they, maybe not buy it, but before they choose it could actually be super helpful.
Yep.
And it could help with, explaining to your supervisor, boss, CEO, whoever, it would help with explaining the justification to put the time in to do something like this.